We are live with the oil problem. Well, oil's not a problem. It's been to 120 before, and it's not an issue. Well, wait a second. Just wait a second. This is a huge issue for stonks. The plunge protection team is probably already active because we've entered the golden age. That to me is a signal. That comment this morning signals that the plunge protection team will be active on this. But oil is moving in a different way. This is basically going to be largely a live TA show. I'll do some bloviating, but news and TA, which you don't want to miss with Alpha Intelligence. The link is down below, and I think the Eagle King has a QR code. Basically, we're tracking big player volume, and we'll be doing that in oil, stonks, Bitcoin. The other question is, they're looking for a hiding place. They tried to hide in Apple. Hyperscaler earnings are coming out. Okay, none of that's going well. And then oil is moving in such a way. Wait, we'll go over it. So the way oil is moving is key. Obviously, crypto is going to get dragged down by stonks initially. And the question is, will crypto come back after oil gets done wrecking stonks? Because oil is essentially a wrecking ball, and whatever is going on over there is not going to stop. We'll go over the news. That's and we're going to go over the TA, and we're going to discuss why oil is moving differently than it moved last time. Okay. Well, I know we're on the fly here, so we're going to welcome John Legend and Bull Runner, the first guys on the stream. Roster is here. John 316, Odd Dark, a member. Sir. Maiku Zapatis, a member. Welcome. Gary, aloha from far away. By the way, this is the market update. I am your host, Bill Noble. If you need a roadmap in crypto, subscribe to this channel, turn on alerts so you know when we're doing oil charts. And if the content works for you, hit the like button so we can continue to help you. Okay, now, let's start with the Fed. You're like, the Fed? Yeah, let's start with the Fed. So this economics guy is saying Fed chairman thinks AI will make everything so cheap, he'll have to slash rates. It could deliver another bubble in stocks or more inflation. All right. Warsh is going to change how the Fed operates. And obviously, the biggest problem with oil is it constrains the Fed. The Fed can't do anything. The Fed really can't even say anything. And the Fed has to put up with this, idea that, they're going to raise rates. All right. So the higher oil goes, the more people think that the Fed has to raise rates to stop inflation, which is idiotic. What? A rate hike is going to stop what's going on overseas? You got to be kidding me. A rate hike is going to hurt people with credit cards. It's going to hurt housing, which is already a disaster. So I don't know how a rate hike stops any of this at all. But, that's what the market will price in. And I'm just here to tell you the market is wrong. Because if oil goes where I think oil is going, it's going to be a growth drag. So when oil comes back down again, he's going to be cutting rates. That and the fact that oil is probably going to wreck stonks. So let's talk about stonks. Excuse me. Let's talk about stonks. Google comes out and says, we're not going to stop spending. That's how I read it. We're not going to stop spending. And of course, why would they? They're like, we can sacrifice short-term stock performance so that Meta and Amazon and Microsoft don't win this AI race. And that includes Anthropic and OpenAI. So they're not going to stop spending. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Not only are they not going to stop spending, But the big tech companies known as the hyperscalers, they're going full Michael Saylor. Follow me here. What is Michael Saylor's philosophy on the world? I'm buying Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to suck all the capital out of legacy at some point or over time. And my name is Buck, and I don't give up. I'm buying Bitcoin. And if you're going to lend me money, I'm taking the money and I'm converting it to Bitcoin. If you'll allow me to issue stock and, basically increase the supply of stock and reduce the price, guess what? I don't care. I don't care. That's the default attitude. I mean, obviously he cares long-term because he thinks all this Bitcoin he's going to accumulate will eventually help the stock. So he's like, short-term stock performance, who cares? STRC, his funding instrument, goes from 100 to 70. Who cares? It came back to 89. He doesn't care because he has a long-term objective. And he's just like obsessed with it. Well, hyperscalers just announced they're doing the same thing. They're like, oh, we're not going to stop spending. Google's like, oh, yeah, we're not doing discipline, responsibility. We don't care. We're going to take as much money as anybody's going to give us. We're going to spend as much money as we have to because we can't lose. So that's going on. They're going full Michael Saylor crazy, which is nuts because they're going full Michael Saylor crazy. At least he's going crazy to buy an asset that he thinks is going up over time. They're spending money on a railroad route from New York to Chicago. And I don't know how many routes from New York to Chicago we can have. I mean, obviously AI is going to need multiple ways to move around, but that's on the blockchain. I don't know that all these big tech companies are going to win. I don't. They don't either. They just know that they got to spend money, which is crazy, right? Saylor spends it on Bitcoin. These guys are spending it on whatever. I mean, we know what they're spending it on: data centers, chips, energy. But are they all going to win? Yikes. Meanwhile, back at the oil ranch, oil keeps rising and rising and rising slowly. This is the key. Slowly. Oil is not spiking. It's not like all the way up, leading you to believe it can come all the way back down. That's what happened on 2022. And that's what we did on part one of the show we're currently watching. Oil is moving through resistance gradually. So this is like gradually, then suddenly in oil. So stonks are looking at, we don't care, we're going to spend money, even if it means we lose money. How is that good for stonks? AI is going to disrupt S&P 500 stocks, and this oil thing shows no sign of stopping. This geopolitical situation, there's no tacoing out of this at this point. He's not tacoing out. He's not tacoing out. I don't think he can because, some other country would have done wild, crazy things, and he's doing it instead. And if it escalates into the Red Sea, oh, well, it's the golden age. We'll hold up the stock market or try, while oil goes gradually and then suddenly. That's why I think this is potentially so destructive. And if it goes down, stocks may stay down if the plunge protection team can't hold it up. And the only thing that may come back is Bitcoin. And here's why. Here's why. U.S. passes war power resolution directing Orange Man to withdraw from Iran. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Okay. What I wanted was that they gave him $95 billion. So part of Congress wants him out. That's understandable. That's going to be popular when gas prices go to $5. But this is what I'm talking about. U.S. deploys supersonic bomber. So we're going to deploy all the toys. And then after we get done deploying all the toys, we're going to need new toys. So we have to debase the currency for whatever we're doing now because, they gave them $95 billion and they don't have that on hand. They're printing that. And then they're going to buy more toys later. Like, these things can get shot down. They want to go to war footing They want to go to war footing on economic production. 5 oil tankers, getting hit in another choke point. Meanwhile, the French have told Yemen to stop attacking oil tankers from Saudi Arabia. The French. Wow. The French have said stop it, and everyone's going to stop it. Right now, I think you have to assume nothing's going to stop it, which creates a huge problem for stonks. And we're going to go over all the TA. But the problem is how oil impacts stock. And I'm looking at a news headline right now that Orange Man is considering a massive attack on the Iranians, larger than anything carried out before, which leads the Iranians to attack neighboring countries. So I don't think the trend here is our friend. We're on day 12, and I don't even know why we would stop. We can only carry out certain types of strikes, and they're just going to continue to do that. So it's just going to take longer because the only thing we can do is strike from longer range. Can't get close to these guys because of drones and their defense mechanisms. This is not Saddam Hussein. So this just continues. And the spillover effect risk is there. I mean, how do you say, well, we're done? What, you're going to call up the Houthis and they're going to stop? They're like their own little entity. They don't have to do anything if that gets started. And if you have oil up 6%, just follow oil. Just follow oil. I mean, if infrastructure starts getting attacked, oil could freak out massively. Massively. Somebody from Twitter requesting GameStop, don't let me forget. Because right now, the reason to not get hysterical is oil is still being produced. It just can't escape. It can't get out or can't move freely. If they start hitting oil infrastructure or electricity infrastructure, okay. Yeah, that becomes $100 and something oil. And if that's sticky, that total stocks takes crypto with it. But then somebody realizes that this conflict means currency debasement, massive currency debasement, which is currently not being talked about. But what is being talked about is that CNBC reports buying stocks with borrowed money hits levels seen at past market tops. What do you know? What do you know? Retail investors right now, yeah, just press the button. This could turn out very badly in stonks, especially if these hyperscaler earnings, like you have cross currents going on over there. And you've got this huge diamond in Nasdaq that doesn't seem to want to go away. I mean, they're fighting it. But I don't know that that's going to work. Not with these hyperscalers having the problems that they have when they're saying, yeah, we're not going to knock it off. They're not going to stop because there's a geopolitical event. They don't care. Just like Saylor doesn't care. Because, you would probably listen to me and goes, well, I don't know that I totally believe what Bill is saying, but how Michael Saylor operates. We know how he operates. And these guys are operating the same way. And I'm sure the plunge protection team knows about the giant diamond. I mean, the target of this thing, you draw the width of the range from the point of the breakout. So NASDAQ has to go from where it is now. NASDAQ would have to go 8% lower. That's kind of a long way away in NASDAQ terms. I mean, in altcoins, that's a bad morning. But, in equities, you would have a mess. You'd be going through 3 high volume zones, and 8% lower in NASDAQ would freak people out, particularly if it happened all at once, which, remember, is what happened in Kospi in semiconductors. Now, the only thing that's saving that sector, and I'm not going to say anything more about it, is that the hyperscalers are continuing to spend. What are they spending on? Chips. I still think chip stocks are not going to be this unbelievable easy money parabolic that they've been. So retail's going to buy the dip. They might make a little money, but I think everybody is going to have to get real after we see what the stock market does when it comes to oil and these earnings. Simple as that. And this whole idea about the Fed hiking rates into this seems insane. Now, this is very interesting. Goldman Sachs CEO says it's time to pass the Crypto Clarity Act. Gee, that's interesting. Senate Democrats say they oppose the Crypto Clarity Act draft bill, but are working with Republicans to get it over the finish line. So they need the crypto bro vote, which we've discussed. The Clarity Act could help stem the slide if crypto follows stonks. Could also help create a nifty bottom if crypto goes down. And then the Clarity Act actually passes and it comes screaming back. But how interesting that the guy from Goldman wants it, because BlackRock's going to tokenize equities or tokenize everything. They got to come in and tokenize because they can't get left behind. Or more likely, if BlackRock is trying to dominate, Goldman wants to do what it does best, which is dominate. So they can't get left behind. That, and they have to tokenize all the sludge that everybody at Wall Street owns so they can dump it on other people, retail, whatever. They can just go through Hyperliquid or whatever exchange and dump on people. The same way tokenized SpaceX dumped on people. Everybody has forgotten that. Not only did SpaceX dump on people, but the tokenized SpaceX and the SpaceX double leveraged ETF, cringe, was also used to dump on your head. So the Clarity Act is in the interest of pro-crypto people and the dumpers and the politicians. So hopefully they're smart enough to get that done. And hopefully it gets passed after everybody has puked or potentially has puked crypto because of this equities oil thing, which, I don't see stopping. I don't see stopping. So let's go to the TA. Let's just start with S&P because we're going to be all over the place with the Alpha Intelligence TA. So this is the 1 hour chart of S&P. You can see that there was this big support point. They took that out. They're trying to rally back, but it doesn't seem to be working. And this to me is starting to look like an ugly head and shoulders top, just to keep it simple. And as you might already guess, you had Alpha Intelligence sell signal up here, and you don't have an Alpha Intelligence buy signal yet, even though it's approaching this huge high volume zone. I'm telling you right now, because remember we saw this with oil, right? We had this huge high volume zone in oil, and I said, if they blow through this, Katie bar the door, right? They're moving through where everybody was selling off the MOU. And if it keeps going, well, guess what? All the shorts are going to have to cover. Hedge funds are short oil, long semis. That's going to blow up. And then you have this ugly thing in S&P. Don't worry, we're getting to crypto. And if you look at Nasdaq, okay, if you look at the 1 hour chart on Nasdaq, hopefully I'm getting this for TikTok. I think you had a buy signal down here. Okay, you had two of them. Okay, that was Friday. Then you got the rally. Now I'm not seeing another signal yet. I'm not seeing a signal here. But this is a huge high volume zone. And this is probably where you're going to see the plunge protection team try to stop Nasdaq from going lower. Is that going to work? Why would it? Why would it? Because, this doesn't seem to be stopping. This is U.S. called WTI crude oil, that is. Group of sell signals, don't care. Sell signals, don't care. When you have these sell signals and they don't work, they're pivot points, it just goes higher. And this is just grinding and attacking these high volume levels. And it's going to, these high volume levels, which, and this is true when you study volume and things like market profile, which is this seemingly ancient way of studying volume. High volume areas act as magnets. So on this crude oil chart, the US crude oil, 95 seems like a given, or 96. Like, why wouldn't it go up there at this point? Like, what, everybody's just going to suddenly stop? They don't care. I don't think they're going to care about this unless oil goes through 120. And everybody keeps saying, well, oil goes to 120 and then it comes off. Okay, maybe. But that might be after you have some kind of freak out in stocks. Like, there isn't going to be a taco until there's a freak out in stocks. And down 1.5% is not a freak out. It's not. I mean, in Brent, you had two groups of sell signals and people are like, I don't care. And it's going into this high volume zone. And if this goes through 100, forget about it. Forget about it. You know, because again, this is where all the selling was. Okay. Nobody cares. You know, it's just going to gravitate in here. And all you need is one negative headline or one major escalation. Bada bing, bada boom. It's a problem, obviously. Now, Bitcoin. Okay, so Bitcoin has the Nasdaq flu, basically. Has the Nasdaq flu. So there's a buy signal in Bitcoin in front of this big high volume area. Right now, no one seems to care. And this just feels like a giant stop fishing environment in Bitcoin, right? Sell signals, run the stops, drop it. Buy signals, run the stops, take it the other way. I don't know. It just feels like crypto is in stop fishing mode. And I believe the sell signal in ETH worked really well. If I'm on the right version of the chart. Yeah. So there was the top in ETH. And thank God I didn't get all constructive. That was on Clarity Act FOMO. So they used Clarity Act FOMO as a sell signal, and the sell signal worked. Yikes. Yikes. I don't know if it showed up in Solana or not. This is Solana on Binance. You know, Solana had the sell signal earlier. It double topped. And then if you have a double top, you know, the Solana target is, I don't know, 75.35, which Solana is very close to. So not the end of the world. But obviously altcoins don't really, you know, don't have much of a chance if stocks are getting hammered. Stocks are getting hammered. Everyone's freaking out about the Fed because, you know, I didn't even realize this, but U.S. long bonds have been getting hammered as long-term interest rates go up and up and up. Right? In other words, if we look at ZB, which is the futures contract for bonds, our bonds are falling because of our bombs, right? In other words, we're just like printing money and inflation is going up, and I don't know that the Fed can do anything about that. You know, bonds are moving in a 5-wave pattern. And I don't know how you stop this, right? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is extending. So you can call this extended fifth wave. Bonds don't care, and bonds are freaking out. Bonds want the Fed to step in and go, okay, we're going to get all tough because inflation is rising. And until the Fed does that, long-term interest rates are just going to continue to go up. The Fed doesn't have to hike rates. It can let the bond market do it, which is what I would do. Just say we're not real happy with inflation. The geopolitical situation creates a lot of uncertainty. And then if rates have to go up to stop inflation, let the bond market do it. But obviously, or maybe not obviously to you, nothing survives rising long-term interest rates. When the long bond is pooping on itself and going lower, nothing survives. Stocks don't survive. Altcoins don't survive. Bitcoin doesn't survive. Everybody gets taken out to the woodshed with this happening. So the problem is oil. The problem is stonks. And the problem is, as stonks go lower, nobody is running into bonds as a safe haven. As a matter of fact, it looks like U.S. and Japanese bonds are going lower as stocks go down. Normally, people flood into treasuries because they're safe. Not so in this case, which is very scary. Very scary, in fact. Okay. And, if you look at things like VIX, if you look at like the daily chart of VIX, this is fear in equities. I mean, honestly, there's no real fear in equities at the moment. None. People are just like, this doesn't matter. Oil's gone up before, blah. VXX, which is kind of like like the volatility of the volatility, meh, no one cares. Resistance at 23. Like I said, no one cares. All kinds of buy signals down here for volatility to go higher, meh, boring. Oil's gone up before. We're not worried about it. Okay, boys. Plunge protection team's going to save us. Okay, boys. Okay. Like I said, gradually, then suddenly, combined with a Michael Saylor level of just, I don't know, maybe you could call it arrogance. Michael Saylor's it's more like conviction. I guess that's a better way to say it. I mean, detractors will say arrogance. I mean, that's definitely a part of the hyperscalers. I mean, because they're not spending this much money because they think their AI, isn't better than everyone else's. We're better than everyone else, and we're going to get there first. Michael Saylor has conviction. I don't have any love for the lizards. So, that smells more like arrogance to me. And markets have a funny way of humbling people. The saying I don't like is markets do what hurts the most people, which in this case would be to smoke the hyperscalers, semis, hedge funds, and retail, because they've basically all got the wrong position. I can't even imagine anybody trying to hold a short position in oil at this point. I mean, that's like career-ending stuff if overnight, unintended consequences, black swan, whatever. I mean, because the direction of this thing does not point to anything near stopping. It feels like, country X is outsourcing this conflict to us. And they wouldn't stop, so we wouldn't stop. If we stop, they would enter. So how does this end? I don't know. I don't see everybody just going, oh, let's do another MOU. The MOU was for July 4th in America. So if we're not doing an MOU, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, Gigi is here. What's the difference between Alpha Intelligence and LuxAlgo? Do you use LuxAlgo still? Do you recommend a change to this new one that you use? Okay. Okay. So let's start with that. I'm using both together. So this is a complete TA revamp. And right now I'm using this horizontal support and resistance because everything in crypto is at its discount zone. And I bet oil is at its premium zone. So I'm definitely using LuxAlgo. I'm demoing Alpha Intelligence. I'm going to have a tutorial in Patreon in the YouTube member area. LuxAlgo is not going anywhere. This Elliott wave thing, that's LuxAlgo. So I'm putting it together. I'm putting it together slowly, right? It used to be LuxAlgo and DeMark. Now I'm switching to LuxAlgo and Alpha Intelligence, because every 5 years or every N years, you have to revamp your TA. That's all. That's all. And I just decided, okay, well, you know what? It's just time for a change. So that's how I'm doing it. I'm putting the two together. It's called synthesizing information. I obviously, since we have a Alpha Intelligence affiliate deal, I'm encouraging people to try Alpha Intelligence. If you have to pick between the two, I don't know. That's up to you, and stay tuned. I don't want to dump anything right now. I mixed in my Elliott wave with Alpha Intelligence. I may mix in an oscillator. Matter of fact, we can put it in right now. Okay. So, it looks like in the Dow, you had some divergence and you had some sell signals at the top on LuxAlgo. I should share the screen. So, I mean, this is just an answer. So LuxAlgo is going to provide confluence eventually. So you didn't get the sell signal on the daily chart. Alpha Intelligence is better for intraday charts and intraday trading. LuxAlgo is better for daily charts. You had an intense amount of FOMO. This is the Dow, by the way. This is your grandpa's stocks. So, yeah. So we're going to be putting everything together. And right now I'm using both. That's what I can tell you. And obviously, I'm incentivized to sell both. And Alpha Intelligence is the new shiny toy. And that's what I can say about it. It's a TA revamp on my part. Okay. So John Legend is asking, bonds and T-bills, treasuries, are they different or are they same thing? Okay, so good question. T-bills are anything that the government issues that matures in 3 months to 1 year. So a T-bill is you give the government money for 3 months, and at the end of 3 months, the government gives you money back, or 6 months or 1 year. Then after 1 year, you start going to notes. Okay. So that's the 2-year note, 5-year note, and maybe the 10-year note. And then the slang is the 30-year is considered the long bond. Everything past 1 year is also a bond. It can be a bond or a note. So 1 year and in is a T-bill. Outside 1 year to 30-year, those are bonds. So that's how that works. Basically, we track bonds. T-bills track what people think about the Fed. They're probably tracking a rate increase. I think the best metric is long bonds because that measures confidence in the government. It's the most subjective. Excuse me. So long bonds are the most subjective. They cover what do they think about the Fed? They cover what do we think about inflation? And they also cover what do we think about the sovereign and the policies and the budget and the expenditures and the printing. So long bonds encompass a lot. I don't talk about it a lot, but I did notice that, bonds are falling because interest rates are rising, and that's toxic. And frankly, I think it's impressive, knock on wood, that Bitcoin isn't falling apart in this environment. That could be because they're looking for the Clarity Act or because, stonks have not fully nuked yet. But it is also funny, switching topics, that Marathon Digital, Hut 8, and CIFR, which are crypto stocks, along with, WAGMI, which is the minor ETF, they're all up today. Didn't I mention like crypto AI equities may be the sweet spot? No, it's never a good idea to party in a negative trend on relative outperformance, but there is some evidence that the hiding place or the place to buy the dip is not equities, clearly. It could be in crypto. Like, Zcash is not falling apart back to TA. The diamond in Zcash is actually approaching its apex, which means whatever move occurs could be big, up or down. So a false breakout or an actual breakout. Like I said, we're watching pivot levels everywhere. Everywhere. Okay. This is the 1 hour chart. This Alpha Intelligence stuff, does take a minute to load. Zcash has got to get above a wall of selling. Somebody puked a bunch of Zcash, and now it's got to get through there. Now, this X wave in LuxAlgo, a lot of times when you have these X waves, they get attacked. It means they're going to try again. They're going to try to get through this. This doesn't look terrible. Obviously, everything is down today. I don't know. Crypto doesn't look horrible to me. It doesn't. Maybe I'm biased. Like, stonks, forget about it. I can't stop hating it. I can't stop hating it. Bitcoin on a daily chart failed at resistance. This is Bitcoin on Coinbase. Bitcoin failed at resistance and had support from the recent run up. So Bitcoin is pinned in, and what Bitcoin does is probably a function of whatever happens in Nasdaq. Just remember, Bitcoin does not have a plunge protection team. They don't. But they do have the Clarity Act. Because I'm telling you right now, they don't pass this Clarity Act, they're going to take it out on both sides of the aisle. The crypto bros are going to stay home. There's kind of a USA #1 party thinking out there. They're talking about staying home or voting left. This all matters. I mean, it's freaking August 1 is around the corner. So I'm at a loss for words as to what they're doing. I mean, this escalates daily. I understand they're trying to make the Strait of Hormuz safer by taking out offensive capabilities, which is probably the only reason why oil is not at 100 and something right now. Because whatever this is designed to try to make the strait passable. Is that realistic? I don't know, man. Like I said, the enemy gets a vote. We're giving it our all, and I'm as upset as anybody else that young people are perishing in this, and it makes me want to fight. However, if they fight, the more they want to fight, the more they have to print. Right? John Legend says, I just can't hold cash. I got to have some kind of an asset. People are holding cash. There is a lot of cash on the sidelines still. There's a lot of FOMO in equities, but there is a lot of cash sitting around as well. So let's see what you have to say about it. Wrong Again says, I'm still here. What do you make of the garbage macro, yet constructive BTC prices? Okay. Prefer Bitcoin to stonks, right? The stonks story is idiotic, old news, played out, and still hyper levered. Nothing has happened to S&P. Nothing has really happened to Nasdaq. Okay, yeah, they wrecked semis and Kospi. So what? So what? They liquidated a bunch of people in South Korea. Okay. But that hasn't done anything to stonks. Is the macro garbage? Yeah, I mean, The data is okay, but can you believe the data? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Bitcoin was designed for the day when sovereigns screwed it up beyond repair. This feels like the start of sovereigns breaking things beyond repair. I mean, if this escalates into a major conflict, problem. If oil goes to 100 and stays there, problem. Right? I mean, oil's been at 100 before and it wasn't the end of the world, but that feels like a consensus view. Everybody keeps saying, well, it's not the end of the world. We've been here before. Okay. Well, what happens if we've been here before and it keeps going? Like, Goldman said $120 oil. You know what will happen if it gets to 120, Goldman will upgrade it to 150. You don't know. I mean, that's how investment bank research works. And again, we talked about the ex-Goldman guy, Jeff Curry, saying that this is the tightest environment for energy he'd ever seen. So if you disrupt supply or you destroy oil infrastructure, I mean, this goes bananas. And everyone's acting like it doesn't matter. And I'm like, you know what? It kind of does. So it just feels like more currency debasement. They have to support equities, currency debasement. They have to support Japan to stop the yen from collapsing, currency debasement. They have to deploy the B-1 bomber, currency debasement. They have to fight. This war is like what? $1 billion a day? It's more than that. We're depleting our supply of cruise missiles. It's $1 billion a day. I mean, that's being printed. Now, is that the end of the world relative to what we spend? No. But this has been stated. They want to turn our economy into like a war production economy, almost like the Russians. They want growth industries, they want AI, and they want military spending. Where are they going to get that from if they're running a $2 trillion a year deficit now, pre-conflict? No one is talking about this. Like, what does this do to the deficit? An undiscussed topic. Well, no, actually, it's not an undiscussed topic. The bond market is trading it, but we're not trading it in crypto because crypto's getting dragged down with Nasdaq. Fine. Nasdaq goes 10% lower. Bitcoin might go to 64 or 60. Okay. You're going to have buyers on a deep dip in Bitcoin because of the Clarity Act and monetary debasement. I have no illusions about Bitcoin holding up if there's a Nasdaq, if Nasdaq blows its diaper, right? Bitcoin's going to go with it initially. But you're going to tell me that this currency debasement trade is going away? The Fed's going to hike rates and strengthen the dollar? Yeah, sure. Right before they dump the dollar on your head. Because I don't know how this results in not printing. Warsh may not want to print, but guess what? If you have a slowdown in growth, stonks collapsing, and oil sticking above 100, guess what? Guess what? Oh, yeah, by the way, we're going to need more B-1 bombers, more drones. I mean, we have a drone that's being shot down. Why are we sending out drones that are getting shot down? Because we're going to get new drones. Gulf War I was like this. Oh, let's test out all the equipment. Oh, this worked. This didn't work. Okay, let's replace whatever didn't work with something that will work for the new era of warfare. What do you think is going on here? I mean, Toby on the YouTube member stream says, there's always more than one agenda. She's been talking about this. Like, I can't repeat what she said about the relationship between oil, stonks, and crypto. Really should check it out. Come check us out because I don't know how much more serious it gets than this. Honestly, Routine Cheese says Orange Man campaign on no more conflicts, and now young people are, perishing for what? A strait that was open before all this started? Epic fail. Now, if that winds up at the polls in November, that's, yeah. that creates another level of uncertainty or risk. Like nobody knows what happens in November. Like when they did the MOU, it looked like, okay, we did it. It's done. We got out of this. It didn't get worse. Points for getting out. Fine. Now, I don't know, man. They're going to have to be really good. And Orange Man is good at making deals. By the way, Orange Man is a neutral term, just kind of putting a little humor in it. Also, without having to say his name, which I don't know, YouTube may not like, just as a point of information so nobody gets upset. I don't want to make anybody upset. Orange Man has a way of making deals, but this doesn't feel like the deal is to get out. It feels like the deal is to get in deeper. So somebody else doesn't have to get involved who won't stop. We'll do it. Just sit this out. That's what it feels like. And now, if that's the case, and you have oil gravitating towards a big volume zone, let's look at Google. They reported last night. So, this is lizard action. And this is nice from Alpha Intelligence, right? You got Google trying to rally before earnings. This was Thursday, the 16th. So, the Alpha Intelligence signal near the high volume zone gave you a trade. You don't always get a trade from Alpha Intelligence. Oh, by the way, that is another key component of this that goes along with LuxAlgo. I think LuxAlgo is a good tool for analysts. I know there are a lot of guys that use it for trading. I found it was better for analysis. This is designed to try to get me into the setup game, the trading game. Right now, there isn't always a signal, obviously, but that's pretty powerful in, like Tesla down 13% today. They're taking this stuff that people own out to the woodshed in equities. It feels like panic has already started. I think these guys also reported earnings. This should have been a 5-wave conclusion and wasn't. If it's supposed to stop and it doesn't, what's it going to do? It's going to keep going. The buy signal was way over here at 376. It's at 322. I mean, I don't see, in Tesla is still loading. We'll see if there's a volume zone down here. Like where's the volume zone? Like where does Tesla stop? The volume zone in Tesla is at 260. Or is it? Yeah, there it is. 260. There's nobody home here. Nobody. Nvidia is supposed to be super cheap. Let's see. Okay, well, Nvidia tried to rally. This is the daily chart. The buy signal worked. It's not going up. It's cheap, but no one's buying it. What does that tell you? It tells you there might be a problem. Meta and all these characters like Amazon, they report soon. Meta went to a high volume zone, which was, basic technical analysis resistance, and is now coming off. And they're not going to stop. They're paying 20-year-olds $65 million. Is that not a top? And they've got Dana White, a sports figure, saying, what a savage the head lizard is. I mean, you remember what happened the last time celebrities got involved, right? Bored Ape, Madonna, Tom Brady with all his money in FTX. So, to me, that's no bueno. Now, if we go to the Bitcoin ETF, no, the Bitcoin ETF is not trading well, but there's volume underneath the Bitcoin ETF, right? There's a lot of volume at 35 and 33. So yeah, this is not good, but it's not the end of the world. Looks like a 5-wave structure that ended on support on the volume zone, which also happens to be where the Bitcoin ETF was back in October of 2024. Back over here. This is unwound everything. Everyone's like, oh, this is terrible. Okay, well, it's obviously not good, but it is as Eagle King did in a movie that's from my generation called Escape from Alcatraz with Clint Eastwood. Is this the escape valve? Let's look at Apple, because that was the escape valve before today, where everyone was hiding. And let's see if that's working out or not. So a sell signal on the daily chart of Apple. So this sell signal didn't work and they ripped it up. This sell signal worked in November of last year. Naturally, they had to run the stops before they took it lower. I don't know, boys and girls. Does that look like a good hiding place to you? Let's put the oscillator up from LuxAlgo, oscillator matrix. Yeah. So you have an unconfirmed new high. So you have a higher high in price, but a lower high in momentum with one of the little triangular sell signals down here. So you have two sell signals and what the current YouTube community calls bear div, which is a bearish divergence, which is a higher high in price and a lower high in the oscillator. You want to hide in this? You want to get a room? You want the last room in the hedge fund hotel? I'll pass on that. Thanks. I'll pass. And if you really want to kind of drive it home, you can put up Apple versus Bitcoin futures. You got to be kidding me with this. I'm going to get all super negative Bitcoin. Okay. Yeah. Nasdaq's down 2%. That's bad for Bitcoin, blah, 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 blah. This equities thing is going to get smoked because oil is moving up slowly. And it is interesting that it sticks in US time. Now, there's one thing I've noticed about oil is that, it's sticky. It doesn't rip in US time, probably because either people are too scared to buy it or Uncle Sugar is sitting on it. Right? So if you look at the daily chart of oil, where's the next big zone? Where's the next big zone? I mean, small zone at 96, big zones at 100. And the really big zone for WTI is at 115. This is on a daily chart. Now, if you look at Brent, let's just see what it is in Brent. Okay, yeah, Brent, it's really around the 100. But above 100, it goes right to 120. That's the next zone. So, I mean, if you're above 100, you're at 120. Gradually, then suddenly. So good luck with this thing in stonks. Good luck. I can pull up, say, ETH. Let's pull up Solana instead. Possibly more interesting on a daily chart. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I think the problem with Solana is that I don't see anybody home below. There was some resistance at the top, but I don't see any big volume blocks here. Let's look at XRP. Yeah, I mean that's the negative for altcoins, and I'm not really, altcoins don't have what Bitcoin had, where there was a whole lot below it. Altcoins don't have that. Do I want to lose my mind? No, because Franklin Templeton is saying, hey, the next AI leg is on the blockchain, which, we've been saying for God knows how long. And the guy from Goldman wants tokenization because they have to try to dominate because the BlackRock bus has already left. And I know I said that already, but I'm saying it again. If the guy from Goldman wants the Clarity Act to pass, guess what? When BlackRock wanted the Bitcoin ETF, he called the biggest crypto hater in the history of crypto, Gensler, and said, approve the Bitcoin ETF. And you know what? There was zero want from Gensler about the Bitcoin ETF. It's like, oh yeah, Bitcoin is fine. Bitcoin is decentralized. It's not a security. Okay. We'll do the ETF. No problem. Okay. So when these guys want it, they frequently get it. We have somebody asking for GameStop earlier. Ryan Cohen says he's coming for eBay one way or the other. Huh. Okay. That seems to be going that seems to be going around. One way or the other. We're going to buy something one way or the other. Okay, so this is GME. You got a lot of support at 21-ish or 20-ish. That's constructive. I obviously I think there are still huge shorts in GameStop. That's why this guy can maybe be such a cowboy, because he knows if GameStop stock goes down, there's going to be buyers. There's GameStop overshooting, hitting the support. So it gravitated from the volume zone up here to the big volume zone down there. There's a lot of people selling GameStop today. Does it look terrible? No. Does it look great? No. If you have conviction in this, should you stay with it? Is this a reason to abandon your conviction? No. Now, if it broke down through that volume zone, that would be a different story. Now, this has been an outperformer, Hyperliquid. Big Daddy Crypto is very into this. So, I mean, this is something that was outperforming. It does a 5-wave down move. And then it does an ABC correction. Excuse me. And now it's getting hammered again. So, and it's not terrible. It's headed for a volume zone. If we look at the daily chart, and there's a point to this, by the way. Stuff that's been outperforming has not been working. The good news is Hyperliquid is headed for a major league volume zone down here at 56. So, this is the daily chart. So Bitcoin and Hyperliquid have a lot of support underneath it. It's not the best look in the world, but it's not the worst, right? I mean, you would never give up on Hyperliquid on top of, on top of support. Why would you do that? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. So just putting up some LuxAlgo here, like putting back in the premium and discount zones. Hyperliquid is headed, like equilibrium in Hyperliquid is all the way down at 48. Yikes. On the daily chart. So, and Hyperliquid also broke out of this triangle. And the downside target is 52. So Hyperliquid may go to 52 or it may overshoot to 48 if it breaks support. I mean, if Hyperliquid goes to 48, where's Nasdaq? Where's Bitcoin? That's not pretty. So that's an example of Alpha Intelligence together with LuxAlgo. So if Hyperliquid breaks the volume zone at 56, the downside target is 53. Is that the end of the world? I don't think so. But it is showing you that the place that people tried to hide in or whatever is outperforming is getting taken out to the woodshed. Consensus trades, Nasdaq, Hyperliquid, not trading well. Wherever there were crowded longs, they're getting flushed out, which is what oil and the bond market are doing. That's why that's happening. There's nothing wrong with Hyperliquid. There's nothing wrong with Bitcoin. There's nothing wrong with any of these things. It's just that they may be flushing people out. That's it. That's it. Now, is there something wrong with Nasdaq? Yeah, probably, because the assumptions behind that whole move are being challenged. Meanwhile, the assumptions behind Bitcoin, like printing and, the B1 being deployed, and we may need more B1s, and we're definitely going to need more drones and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's currency debasement, and that's the bottom line from the stream. Crowded longs are getting stopped out. Leveraged margin babies are going to get smoked. And oil isn't going to stop until there's a legitimate reason why it would stop. Like maybe if there's an attack on oil infrastructure and it doesn't work and everybody said, let's stop doing that, maybe that creates a top in oil. Otherwise, you should be expecting gradually, then suddenly in oil, because that's the price action that you have. You have this very timid, well, I don't want to buy it at 85. Well, I don't want to buy it at 90. Well, I really don't want to buy it at 95. And it just kind of keeps going, squeezing people out as it goes. So not the end of the world in crypto. Crypto follows Nasdaq. Oil is a problem. The bond market is a problem. And we have to hope that Toby's right about what this means for stocks and crypto. YouTube member area for the details. That is the market update for today. We will see you next time.